I'm now going to walk you through creating a live model in Excel. I'm going to go through the mechanics. Business decisions have assumptions. They assume things about cost, prices, investments, maybe the useful life of some assets, maybe a commission percent, and so forth. At the time that you're creating the model, you may actually know these amounts, but they can change. That's why they're considered assumptions, or just the current input for these items. And what we're going to do is create a model that links to these assumed or current inputs, so that as the business evolves and some of these items change, the model will update. Or we can change these items individually and see how much they change the answer, the reports, or the outcomes that are desired. So a live model permits assumptions and inputs to change, and all of the computations and report will immediately update every time you make a change. Every client that I've ever created this for has been extremely enthusiastic, because they know that assumptions change and they want to be able to update quickly the analysis. A live model also allows you as the business advisor to test the waters, to change assumptions and inputs and see how delicate the model is to that particular assumption. It may be that you can double that assumption and the decision doesn't change. That's important for the client to know that, listen, you can negotiate on this particular variable because it's not important to you. Or maybe that particular input, if you changed it just 10%, the decision completely changes. So that's one that they're very vulnerable on. So in creating the live model, the key is to link the computations to the assumptions on the input sheet, and I'm going to show you how to do that. We call that no hard coding, meaning that all computations point to the original set of data, the inputs and assumptions. The only thing that you actually type in the cells might be things like that could never change, like the number of months in a year. So let's go to Excel and let's have a look. Now in your materials you were given a spreadsheet example with parts, and this is a budget assignment. It's an imaginary assignment, not one that was given to you, but here's the basic assignment if you care to look at it. There's a client advice memo just to give you an idea of what one might look like. It has a findings tab so that as you or your group mates come up with things that you think you want to tell a client, you keep track of them here, so that when you get ready to write your memo, you have the key ideas you want to be sure to share. Here, this tab was given to you, the inputs, and the highlighted amounts are the amounts that the client can change or you could change and see how it updates the model. So our calculations are going to link to these cells, these yellow cells. Now the calculations are already given to you in this example, but let's delete a few and let me show you how they were made. So let's remove one of these calculations and let's build it together. You can't remove yours because it's been protected, but you could create a new one and you could mimic it. So the way I'm going to link this to the input sheet is I'm going to do either equal or plus, both works. Then I'm going to come down here and click on the Inputs tab. Then I'm going to take the salary and I'm going to divide it by 12 to get the monthly salary. Okay, now if I want to copy it across, if I grab this lower right corner and hold down the mouse and drag it, it doesn't drag across. Why not? The way Excel works is that it assumes when you move one cell to the right that you also want to move one cell to the right wherever you're pointing. So if we move one cell to the right here, we're moving over here and there's nothing in that cell. So we have to lock the relative reference so it will always look at B4. So I can hit my F4 key and it'll put a $ before the B and a $ before the 4. You can also just type in the $, especially if you're not using a Windows. If you're using a Mac, the F4 doesn't work. Then hit enter. Now when I drag it across, it will continue to look at B4 for all of the cells, even when I move over. So I have locked down the relative reference. You can lock down just the B, in which case it will stay in the column, but it will move downwards. or you can lock just the 4, meaning it will float across, but it'll stay on that row. And then here, if I want to add up all the months, I can go up here to the sigma, and it defaults, thinking that's what I want because all the adjacent cells appear to be there. Sometimes it'll default down below, and if you don't like where it defaults to, you can always just paint some different amount. But I like what it defaulted to, so I'll leave it. Alright, let's go down to payroll taxes. Let's try that one just to get the idea. So I want 1 month's worth of payroll taxes. Alright, so you can do either equals, I'll do equals this time, equals or plus, they both work. Over here to inputs. So payroll taxes are a percent. That should be formatted as a percent. I'll fix that before you get the file. So the percent times, and that's the asterisk, the salary divided by 12 to get 1 month's worth. So then I get the 403. Now if I copy this over with one sweep, I have the same problem. What's my problem? The relative reference is in control, and so when I move it over one cell, it thinks I should be moving over one cell here and one cell here. But if I move one cell over on the input sheet, I'm at a blank cell. So I'm going to change this format for you in a minute. You can watch out, see how I do it. So I'm going to go up here, and both of the cells on the input sheet, not just the one, need to be locked down with the dollar signs. Now when I drag it over, the relative reference will work. I can also copy down this summation, or I could go up to sigma and let it sum automatically. If you get a funny answer, you may have forgotten to lock down a cell on another sheet that shouldn't be moving with you. Now sometimes you do want it to move, but in this case we wanted a single cell over here and we didn't want it to gravitate over. So now you should be able to build the other ones yourself. You can of course see that this spreadsheet has been built for you with the links already there. So now let's see what's going to happen if we change one of the inputs. So right now it's a loss of $272 a month. Let's go to our inputs and let's just change something. Let's lower the rent to $500. What happened? This changed, didn't it? Let's change the salary. Let's renegotiate. Let's negotiate to $34,000. What's going to happen? We still are not positive cash flow. So you can play with it, or your clients can play with it to see at what offer amount will you be able to, not quite, see. You can keep playing with these and you can see at what amount will you reach the goal. Alright, let's change this to percent instead of having it being formatted as a dollar sign. I'm going to go up here to this percent in the menu ribbon and click on it. And if I want some decimal places, which I might, I can hit decimal places to the left to increase the decimal. I clicked on it twice there. Or if you don't, you can click the other way and get rid of decimals. So why don't we leave it as 1? Notice that all of them are formulas. And then they're linked to the report. This is the report that summarizes the calculations. And this, in fact, let's just rebuild that. So plus or equals, and then we're pointing here to this cell here. And then for payroll taxes, we're plus or equals, and then we're pointing to that one. Now here's the situation where we do not want to lock the relative reference, because when we copy it down, let's empty all this so you can get a good visual. When we copy it down, we actually do want it to move down 1 every time we go down 1. And then of course this can be pointing, or it can actually be doing the calculation here. Either way works. In this report, we want it nicely formatted on a page. So one of the things you want to do is go up here to your print preview and see is this showing up nicely on one page? So we have good margins around the edge. We have a nice title at the top. Everything's labeled. It's not overly cluttered. It's not overly colored. So that's a good visual for a client and would be a nice partner to a memo so that you wouldn't have to dictate all these amounts. And of course the memo also, you would want to be sure shows up nicely on one page. This bleeds off a little bit. See how it bleeds off a little bit? So we would want to fix that so that it doesn't bleed off the page. How can we fix that? We could move it over here a little bit and then we could try again. So, and notice here on the report that it is, and we can resize a little bit, it's been created in Word and imported as an object onto the sheet. And so we wouldn't want to try to enter text into the cells and try to make a memo in the Excel grid. That's a very poor practice. Okay, have fun and good luck creating your live model.